wars, every single war that humans have fought against each other over is because two people think differently. Like, people think different, which is why I don't really care. I don't try to change people's opinions. I just try to explain things how I see them, and maybe that helps, maybe it doesn't. I don't freaking know. So gravity doesn't work for birds. What do you mean, DV? If a bird stops slapping its wings, what happens? By that logic, if gravity didn't work for birds, when people go quail hunting and they shoot a quail out of the sky, it would just kind of keep going. But also, they're drones. Particles are kind of the same. Two atoms are indistinguishable. What do you mean, Granitas? Particles are kind of the same. Two atoms are indistinguishable from one another. Yeah, that's right. There is some uniformity. The fabric of our universe tends to be uniform, but that's like saying that if you give me 1,000 Legos and you 1,000 Legos, 1,000 of the same sets of Legos, and said build something, that we would build the same thing. There's no. Even if we said, even if someone gave us, all the Legos to the Lego shuttle, right? The Lego space shuttle, and said, build the shuttle, here's no instructions. Would the space shuttle that we make, that you make and I make, be the same thing? Even if we had all the same parts? No way. Not a chance. You see what I'm talking about? The fact that everything is so ridiculously imperfect, and that NASA is not only willing to admit that it's imperfect, willing to admit that they have no control over it whatsoever, tells me everything I need to know. That's straightforward enough, sure. Right? Like, that makes perfect sense to me. Anyway, let's start up space news. Go from there. But yeah, good conversation. But yeah, Ray, like, dude, I try to be well versed on this stuff just in case this conversation comes up, right? Like, it's just hedging my bets because I don't want to get caught with my pants down, Is there a lot of news today? I'm not sure. What is this? The Flat Earth Clock app? No, I'm good. We don't need that. Shishidza, what are you looking for? Block what I posted. Do I need permission? Don't post that. Don't post the Flat Earth Clock app in here, man. Shishidza, what are you looking for? I see you posting the help command. Just, dude, there's 1,000 commands. It's easier to just ask me. All right. That didn't link me to a video, Ray. I'll be honest with you. Anyway. Okay, guys. I'm gonna take a break. I'll be back in about 15 minutes here. And we'll start up space news, okay? Be back in a moment. Good conversations, though.
recovery. Go and throttle up.
Alrighty. Okay. It is time for the space news. F1 quali is going on pretty much now. It's very strange having Formula 1 qualifying in the same time. Well, it's not really the same time zone. Close to the same time zone as you. That's very peculiar. Anyway, here, let's get in here like this. Stuck on the starting soon screen. It doesn't say starting soon to me. It says nothing. I know, dude. It's all good. Anyway, let's see. So, actually, guys, there really isn't much. Well, it did a second ago. The next thing you're going to start telling me is that gnomes are showing up in mission control, man. Like, I think you're seeing things. What gnome? Yeah, see? There's no gnomes behind me. What are you talking about? It's very, very weird. No gnomes, only Waluigi. That's Wario. Thank you very much. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, it's very strange. Anyway. Alright, let's look around. Let's see. Actually, you know what would be a good place to start? Let's start looking at NASA's, the image archive over at NASA. Let's see. Do we got anything new here? We have peppers. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, that's the kind of picture I'm looking for. There we go. Oh, hello. You know, it's real interesting. Yesterday I was saying it would be really cool if we had a shot that goes all the way to the ground. And, yep. There it is. There's your shot that goes all the way to the ground. So, there's the two tail service mast umbilicals. There's the edge of the mobile launcher. And then about 30 feet below that is the ground. That's the ground all the way down there. Yep. So... Alright, well, if that's the case, Tiggs, then I would like a... it would be really nice to have, let me think, a shot looking up from the mobile launcher, looking up the side of the rocket, looking all the way up. Basically, this shot in reverse. Take the same picture from down there, from that spot, right there, looking up. They made the Battlefield 2042 beta into a real thing, huh? Oh, gosh. All right. Bossy, what is this? Let me see.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
They listening? They might be. I don't know. All right, let's see what we got. Hey, Clutch, what's going on? Crown it. You can speed it up a bit? No? I don't think I will. I'll check it, Thomas. Alright, we'll go over here. That doesn't suck. It depends, Ryan, to be honest with you. I would say yes at this point, yeah. Unbelievable. That was a really good video. Is Artemis related to Orion? Orion is the name of the spacecraft that will move humans around for the Artemis program. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Is that whole launch escape system, Spike, a giant SRB with 4 nozzles? Huh. Yes and no. Orion's launch escape system is actually... Here. You want to see it work? You want to see it working?
5,
Take a look.
4, 3, 2,
Watch.
1, ignition.
This is the AA2 test where they tested it, John. It is, but it's a little more complicated than that. Watch. Just found out there's a height limit in Icarus. Oh, that's a shame. At the very top of the launch escape system, it's not just an SRB. There's the RCS trash can. Yeah, you'll see what I mean in a second.
Mach 1.
You're at Jetty Park for it. It was a cool one, Vulcan.
10 seconds. We will see the
There, so it's those 4 engines, and that's part of it. But watch what it does now.
Good control.
Look at the very top of it, John. See the RCS? It has SRB RCS. Look at that. You see it flashing up there?
Jettison.
And then there's a second stage for jettison for the capsule. See that? It's actually... It's not just a rocket that's on top of the damn thing, dude. It gets a little more complicated than that. You have an ACM up top, which is it's basically a solid rocket booster, but it has 8 holes on it, and it can divert the thrust in different directions. So you have your escape motors, and then you have your jettison motors here. It's pretty nuts, dude. See, the abort motor is actually upside down. The nozzle's at the top, because it's a launch escape system, right? The abort motor's down here. See that? And the exhaust goes up and out, like a shower head almost. And then the jettison motor is right there. Like I said, this is a lot more complicated than people give it credit. It's very complex. The flaming trash can is my favorite part. The ACM at the top here. There's videos of... Northrop Grumman has videos of the ACM firing. I call it the flaming trash can. Because, well, that's what it looks like. This might be loud, but headphone users, this might be loud. This might be loud, by the way. Look at that. Look at that. Look at it. It's variable. Isn't that cool? Variable variable nozzle SRM. That's really neat, man. Look at it. Look at it. Just blow. It's like a blowtorch. This video has much higher quality footage of the test. Well, thank you.
3, 2, 1, 0.
Oh yes, that's quite nice. It's the attitude control motor for the launch escape system. Look, look, look. I'm sorry, that's really funny to me. Flaming trash can. Around the horn. I want one for science, don't we all? See that? That's part of the launch escape system. That's part of the that's up it's up here. You see the flaming trash can? It's up at the very, very top. Here, you'll see it working here in a moment. Like I said. Watch, you can see it sparking up there. I have one question. Why? Well, Jock, with the launch escape system, the Orion's parachutes are right behind those flames. You obviously don't want that near your parachutes when they jettison, right? So what this thing is designed to do is, you know, with a launch escape system, you have basically, it's towing the capsule. It's pulling it, right? It's pulling it away from the stack instead of pushing like a regular rocket. So you have a much larger surface area down the bottom. The center of pressure on this thing is way towards the rear, so it naturally stabilizes out when you jettison, right? But there's a problem. The capsule's facing the wrong direction. The capsule's going this way. If you deployed the chutes right now, once again, you'd deploy them right into an exhaust, an SRB exhaust, and I don't think I need to tell you why you don't want that, right? So what the flaming trash barrel does is flip the thing over. When this thing shoots up off the rocket and then it hits an apogee. When it hits an apogee, your speed is the lowest. Basically when your kinetic energy outweighs your potential, right? Or when your potential energy outweighs kinetic, that means you're basically going really slow. So the aerodynamics when the engine fires, right, the capsule keeps it stable on the way up. And then once it starts to hit the top of its arc, right, that's when aerodynamics are at a minimum. What matters more at this point in time is where your center of mass is, right? Think like a bottle flip, right? You throw the bottle, right, and the bottle goes end first up, right? And then when it gets to the top, it flips over and then it goes end down, right? Same kind of idea. The trash can at the top of the RCS, the attitude control motor, flips this thing over when it hits the top of its ballistic arc and then jettisons the capsule. Watch. See, because you can tell by how the smoke is, how the exhaust from the SRBs is propagating here that it's not going very fast. It's basically at the very top of its ballistic arc. And the attitude control motor moves the thing in place, right, to jettison the launch escape system and fart the capsule out the back. And now Orion is flying heat shield down towards the ground so it can deploy its chutes correctly. Yeah, that's an interesting problem to solve. You know, you jettison the capsule away from the rocket on the way up. The capsule's facing the wrong way for your parachutes. So all of that is just for the launch escape system. It's not too incredibly complicated for, well, it is a little bit more on the complicated side, but yeah, pretty much.
Discharge both sides.
See? And it poops the capsule out, and it gets it away from the explodey thing that got you away from the rocket that exploded as well. I understand the need for it. I question its implementation. There's surely reason But I imagine some liquid monopropellant or hypergulls would be easier to control. I mean, if you were opting for some type of reusable architecture, but what about that is reusable? Might as well show the Apollo. What, is that the one where the rocket voids itself on the way up, boss? Yeah, that's a good video. The B-roll? Let me see. Let's check the B-roll first.
Launch.
Oh. Hello. How close is core stage 2 to completion? I've heard in May that they joined the top 2 structures. I would say it's about 50% done right now, Ryan. What happens to you just using launch escape towers? Launch escape system towers. What do you mean launch escape system towers, Fleiken? What? And you asked what happens to the boomstick that on the top? Water, ocean, Nemo's house. I don't know. Look at me, Dr. Zoidberg, a homeowner. The reason the Orion uses a launch abort system, the reason the Orion LAS uses an SRB is for the attitude control system instead of a hypergolic system. The reason it does is because hypergolic systems couldn't make the thrust to keep the vehicle stable.
4, 3.
No, I mean like the ones on the older rockets, the red towers. SRB ACS is Chad GNC engineering. Seriously, Prey. Flaming trash can. Like, who the hell thought of that? That was a pretty awesome idea.
T-minus 10. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Happy time!
And the DLC
I'm sorry, it just looks so goofy.
launch vehicle is carrying the AA-2 launch abort system for a full stress test.
Should be on top of an Ares 1.
2,500 feet. That is good.
Should have been on top of an Ares 1. So what is the first engine here? They took the first stage of an ICBM and shoved it behind an Orion. Yeah, seriously. Yeah, that's Launch Complex 46. It's a Minotaur 4 launch complex. So yeah, it's an Orion with an ICBM shoehorned in the back. It's pretty awesome, actually. The Constitution got underway yesterday. Yeah, I heard about this. There we go. That's cool. It's basically a beefed up service module. Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah, right. Part of me wishes they didn't put the arrow shroud around Minotaur so it was a really skinny booster. They had to do that for center of pressure, Vulcan. They did that for COP. But yeah, I know what you mean, and you probably know that as well. Basically, with this whole damn thing, you know good and well your center of mass is way up here somewhere because your launch escape system is real. And the Orion that was in this thing is a dud, right? And the service module in it is a dud, right? The Orion's a mass simulator, and then the service module is just basically an empty space. So you have a lot of forward mass here. So what do? Right? You put this thing on here and make it so all the drag from this gets happens down here and not up here. It moves the center of pressure back further. That's why it has such a long body behind it. The only part that you need is basically from this line up. This is the closest to Ares 1 we'll ever get. Is it bad if I still believe to this day that NASA should still make this? We talked about this during Minecraft this afternoon, guys. NASA should still make this. You know why they should still make this? When we go to the moon or to Mars, right? We're gonna need a way for Orion to be able to get into low Earth orbit. Because we're not gonna go to Mars via the moon. That makes no sense. That's really not a good way to do that. That's like saying, you know, I live in Berlin and I want to go to Paris, but I need to go to Prague first. That's not okay. Prague. Yeah, no, sorry. Could NASA still have a moon landing by 2024, or will it slip? It might slip, Ryan. Right, like, why would you do that? So, Orion's eventually going to need a way to get into low Earth orbit just by itself, if we're really serious about it, because we're not going to launch an SLS just to put Orion into space. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Orion ACM stuff. Oh, cool. It's really a cool piece of kit, isn't it, Thomas? Really large slingshot? Even then, you're just flying by the moon. You're not stopping there. Did you hear about this? They pushed Hueys off the carrier to make room for people to land. The captain thought he was going to be court-martialed for it. Yeah, I know about that. Scary flaming barrel. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know about that one too. But yeah, I mean...
Discovery, go at throttle up.
Why Orion to low Earth orbit? Doesn't it always go to the moon? Hey, Gujar, 11-month resub. Good afternoon. How are you today? I'm great. So, why would a moon landing be delayed? Alright, there's like 4 or 5 different conversations that are gonna need long answers. Human person, I'll tackle yours first. Why does Orion need to go to low Earth orbit? Where are you gonna build a transfer vehicle to go to Mars? Are you gonna build that at the gateway? Are you gonna build it around the moon? No. A transfer vehicle to eventually get to Mars is going to require low Earth orbit construction. You're gonna have to do that. That's kind of inevitable. Because we're not gonna Apollo style go to Mars. That doesn't make any sense. We're not gonna go to Mars with 3 people in a capsule attached to a lander on a 3-month duration trip. So the option there is to build a bigger rocket, right? Build a bigger rocket so we could do it all in one shot. Well, that means we'd need something like twice the size of a Saturn V. That makes no sense. Why not just build something like the Saturn V and build a vehicle in space that's designed to be docked together and then send that, like Constellation. That's why I like Constellation so much, right? Human person, just like Constellation, eventually we want to go to Mars after the Artemis program does its thing. There's a follow-up program that's already started to get made to the Artemis program, which is basically an Artemis applications program called Moon to Mars. And Moon to Mars basically entails building big vehicles in low Earth orbit. This isn't anything that NASA wouldn't, like, you could go look up Moon to Mars right now. The plan is to build something in low Earth orbit using SLS, but the thing is, why? Why would you do that? Why bother? You're gonna, like, with people on board, right? You're sacrificing your throwaway to low Earth orbit with people on board. Do people necessarily need to be on board? No. You got to take the Orion capsule off of SLS and use that to build a transfer vehicle up in space. If you're going to do that, Orion needs a way to get into low Earth orbit that is not just an SLS. Sending an Orion capsule into low Earth orbit on SLS is a waste of time. So Orion's going to have to find another way into space. And that's why I say building Ares 1 is a good idea. Even at this point in time, building it is a good idea. That's a, you know, unless a Falcon 9 is going to start yeeting Orion capsules up into space, which, I mean, it probably could. Yeah, a Falcon 9 in fully expendable mode, though. Yeah, you could probably do it. Yeah, I mean, Falcon 9 is the only one that I can think of that would be able to do it. I mean, unless you want to put an Orion on top of Vulcan and launch people from Slick 41, which already has Starliner. That's not a bad idea. If Falcon 9 can't do it, Falcon Heavy can. Not human rated. Vulcan would probably be the way to do it, or New Glenn, which has a fixed service structure. But even then, launching an Orion on a New Glenn, Thomas, is a huge waste of payload capacity, just like it is on SLS. Vulcan would be the correct option there. Orion is the correct diameter for it, after all. It's 5 meter, or 5.4, right? Because it fits on top of a Delta 4 stage. Doesn't sound like it would take much to human rate Falcon Heavy. Well, Elon said we could have human rated it, but we would have rather spent that money on Starship instead. So, I mean, that right there, Synerd, tells me if it was a cheap and easy thing to do, they probably would have done it. Meaning that it's probably expensive. Proton has the throw weight, but yeah. To build a transfer vehicle in low Earth orbit, you could use SLS and use the extra payload capacity for modules. Or you could take the Orion capsule off and send a bigger module. Sorry, off topic. You linking something off topic, Flykin? Jeez, you're worse than me, man. I thought I go on tangents. Holy hell. Yeah, imagine having a system to launch cargo and crew at the same time into space. I'm pretty sure we had something that did that already. So, at the end, maybe we don't need to make Ares 1, but at the end of the day, we're still going to need to... You're still going to need a way for Orion to get into low Earth orbit. It's inevitable. Okay. So, here, a little bit of an update from some sort of shuttle thing. Yeah. Yeah, Josh, yeah. How about we build a reuse... how about we, like, take SLS and make it reusable? Right? Let's take SLS. Let's make a reusable variant of it. Right? We'll make an SLS-derived launch vehicle. And, you know, those RS-25s are expensive. So, how about we, like, put them on the side and have, like, a winged orbiter, like a lifting body, do, like, a once around and, like, bring them back at the end of a mission or something. That would be really cool. That'd be a really cool thing to make. Sounds expensive. Is it more expensive than throwing away those RS-25s, though? Could you 3D print half the parts with begins attached to the ISS in a separate hub for construction? On-orbit manufacturing, Sheepdog, is not something... It's not impossible. Let me preface that. It's not impossible. On-orbit manufacturing is just something we're just not there. It's not there. Why? Because we have to move the equipment up there. There is a company that is working on that called Relativity Space. They're working on trying to pioneer 3D on-orbit 3D printing and manufacturing to build rockets up there. So all you have to do is just move raw materials around. Combo crew and cargo was actually thought of and had a launch vehicle attached to the side for Liberty rocket. Actually, that's pretty neat. Why don't we just fly them with a separation module and chutes, then have a system fill everything with some sort of expandable foam to waterproof them? It's not really about waterproofing, Oxalot. The water... Making an SLS core stage waterproof is literally the least of your concerns. The thing about the SLS core stage is that it basically makes it to orbit. It makes it like 98% of the way there. Just like the Saturn V second stage gets you 98% of the way to orbit, and then you need a slight puff from the third stage to circularize, and then the third stage goes somewhere else, like to the moon. SLS is built in the same way. Don't think of SLS's core stage as the first stage. The SRBs are the first stage, right? Solid rocket boosters are the first stage. And the core stage is just your second stage. But SLS is like 1.5 STO, right? Because your upper stage engines are technically on at liftoff, right? So just like a Falcon 9 second stage basically makes it into orbit and then deploys its payload and then either A, deorbits or its orbit decays, the core stage is going to make it all the way into space. So it's not like KSP where you have something that, you know, it doesn't have a heat shield, but it should be able to make it back down. No, in real life, anything that doesn't have some type of heat shield or thermal protection system coming back from orbit, you're going to lose. So it's not so much about making the engines waterproof, dude. It's about getting it through reentry. You're going to need a thermal protection system. Elon said that after Starship will enter service, Falcon 9 will be slowly decommissioned because it will not make sense economically if Starship delivers on its promises. Yeah, I know. So... What does that have to do with this conversation, Swishy? I mean, you're right, but... Prefacing this with I'm deliberately trying to not recreate the shuttle. If you make SLS core stage flyback, it should have a much easier time going through re-entry than the shuttle did because it's larger and lighter. Flyback? No. Huh, they did wind tunnel testing of Orion with grid fins for abort stability. Huh, cool. I mean, Synerd, the problem with that is that SLS's core stage gets to 17,000 miles an hour. It's the second stage. Trying to bring back an SLS core stage is like trying to bring back a second stage. It's the same idea. Only the SLS core stage is gigantic. Yes, it's light, but you're going to need a heat shield if you want to get that thing down. And if it has a heat shield on it, now it's not light anymore. See what I'm talking about? It means there will be no Orion on Falcon. Oh, okay, Swishio. Yeah, I got you. Yep. If you consider any form of glider reentry for SLS, it would have to be a once around. Yeah, exactly. You'd have to go all the way around. Energia Oregon is way ahead of its time. It's a shame it didn't become reality. Yeah, well, Shuttle C is a thing too, Smirks, that they should have done, but they never did. You know? Boostback isn't an option. The starters, what starts the RS-25s is ground service equipment, guys. RS-25s can't air start. That's for good reason. Because air starting a fuel-rich stage combustion cycle engine pools hydrogen, and hydrogen in the vacuum pooling in places that you don't want really doesn't end well. That's why the shuttle has those sparkers behind it when it goes to launch. They're radial outward firing igniters. They're kind of like the Rofies on Delta IV. Those huge sparkers when the shuttle launch goes. You don't have that when you're up there. Also, you need the launch pad to start those engines. Redesigning the RS-25 to air start would be a really, really hard thing to do. Prey, I got an idea. You know, the RS-25 can trace its roots back to the J2, basically, right? J2 is a gas generator hydrolox engine, right? That's where it can trace its roots to. You know, because it can, you know, it's like in the same group. How about we just take a J2 and we just modernize it? We just modernize it because the J2 had air start capability and it uses a torch igniter. And hydrolox. You know, it'd be really nice if we, you know, had a whole program to modernize that. Because the J2 is a very good design, even by today's standards. What you said doesn't make any sense. Hydrogen doesn't pool in the vacuum. It expands, and that's it. That's not the issue. Are you sure, human? You sure about that? Alright, fine. Frick me then. You know, NASA's wrong too. Sure, exactly. That's not the reason. I have rocket fuel, by the way. Wasn't the J2X mostly a clean sheet design? Eh, kind of. Ohms forward while igniting the RS-25 will prevent the pooling. The RS-25 is just not designed to air start. You could do it. Human, I would invite you to go look at studies into air starting RS-25s. You're like 100% in the wrong, basically. Yeah, like 100% in the wrong. Like, I'm not trying to be mean, man. If you're using an RS-25 as an upper stage engine, you're not totally in the vacuum because you're using it as a second stage engine. Second stage engine, where it ignites, you still have atmosphere. There's still hydrogen pooling. Aerodynamics still plays an effect. That, and, you know, for it to air start, you need to lug a bit of the launch pad with you into space, making the thing way too heavy. Like, dude, I'm not just making this stuff up for fun, you know? Like, yeah, see, the reason why these studies even exist, dude, is because they looked into this during the Constellation program. You can go look at these studies. They looked at the Constellation program, and they deemed that remaking the J2 was cheaper than trying to refit an RS-25 for air start capability. Like, this is not something that, like, I'm just saying for fun, or just because I like shuttle engines, or don't like shuttle engines, or I want to be, like, you can go look at the NTRS studies on this stuff, man. Like it's all there. Yeah, that's cool, Hellfish. I've actually seen that model. It's at Intrepid, which is pretty neat. Like, I'm not trying to be, this isn't EJ's like, no, you're actually right, you're technically, no, you're just straight wrong, dude. Go read the studies, bro. I'm telling you. Is the RD-180 restartable? Theoretically, Driados, yeah, it is, but it's never been, I don't think it's been done unless, you know, someone here that knows more about the Russian space program than me. Unless the Russians have ever tried to test it by itself. I'm pretty sure the RD-180, I actually learned that the RD-180 uses T-tab. I thought it used the torch igniter. It uses triethyl aluminum and triethyl borane, like Merlin engines. So, yeah, you could restart it if you had multiple radial T-tab igniters, I guess. The T-tab cartridge size is not large enough for multiple starts. There you go. Like I said, unless the Russians tested it in an experimental capacity, yeah. Is the RS-25 still a good engine? Yeah, Ryan. Yep. That's why we see a green flash when the RD-180 ignites. Yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm. Please don't tap the table, Mike. Yep, sorry about that. Yeah, Ryan, the RS-25 is a great engine. It's fantastic. It's... The thing about the RS-25, dude, is that the RS-68, in an expendable capacity, does everything that an RS-25 does, but better. That's the problem. That's my thing. Like, SLS should have those RS-68s down there, but the only reason they didn't put the RS-68s down there is, one, because of heating problems, which would have required the RS-68's nozzle to be redesigned a little bit. Two, because SLS is human rated and Ares 5 was not. you needed to use it. Using a human-rated engine was better. Using something that people were already certified to fly on saved some cost. But I talked about in Minecraft how I feel about NASA saving money, which is hilarious to me. RL10 spam, restart development work on the RL60. I mean, Cynerd, I'm happy with the EUS. The EUS is just fine. This thing is a fine upper stage. Excuse me, when was that changed? 2011? Because it's hilarious. The R68B would be the crew-rated version, was proposed for Delta IV Heavy variant to replace Ares 1X. Or you could just... See, Vulcan, that makes no sense, dude. To continue the conversation I was having during Minecraft, that makes no sense. Okay, let's get rid of Ares 1X, because it's going to be too expensive. Okay, so what do? Let's make Delta IV human rated. So we make the RS-68B. So you're basically refitting an engine from the ground up. And you're re-engineering an entire Delta stack to be able to carry people, right? Because Delta IV Heavy could move Orion, right? Like it did on EFT-1, right? It's funny because they looked at all that stuff and they said, oh, that's also expensive. You know what? Never mind. Let's just not do this. Like... They looked at Ares 1 and said that's too expensive. And they're like, oh, there's got to be a cheaper way to do this. And then they looked at all the cheaper ways to move Orion into low Earth orbit and then eventually just defaulted to they're all expensive. Screw this. We're not going to do it. Like, that's like saying I need a car to get to work, right? I'm going to look at a Tesla. I'm going to look at a Ford. I'm going to look at a Honda. I'm going to look at a Chevy. You know, oh, I like the Tesla, but it's too expensive right now. Okay, the Ford, the Honda, and the Chevy are all very similar prices, but those are also really expensive. Never mind, let's just not do this. Now I have to walk. Like, how close do you think we are in bringing home some precious asteroid metals? At least a decade. 4 RL-10s are still wimpy compared to the J2. Yeah, but they're more efficient, human person. You get better throw further into space. The EUS has more Delta V than the Earth departure stage from the Constellation program. Fact. It's because RL-10s are freaking cheating, dude. The EUS has about 10,000 Delta V and the EDS has about 8,000. Hey, Kyle, what's going on? Yeah, the exploration upper stage I don't have a problem with. If I had to pick my bones somewhere, it's the fact that you didn't make it when you decided to make SLS. That's my thing. SLS with the EUS is perfect architecture for a lunar program. That's fine. But it basically paves the way to us basically doing another Apollo program because you have to, SLS can't fly without Orion on it. Or, well, if you're going to go to the moon, you're going to need, and you want to use SLS to put like a lander up in space with the EUS, right? You're going to need Orion to find it a separate ride, but we can't do that. So now we're constricted because we have to put Orion on top to get to the moon because we don't have a way for it to get into low Earth orbit, right? You're constricted in lander size. So we basically bottlenecked our landing system, which is, that basically forced NASA to adopt some type of modular landing architecture instead of an integrated system. So now, you know, like the national team's proposal, for instance, was one rocket launches the descent stage, another one launches the transfer stage, another one launches the ascent module, and then you send them out in pieces, and then you put them together at the gateway. That's like 7 rocket launches to do what one Saturn V can do. See what I'm talking about? It's stupid. That's just... That's more sustainable. That's more sustainable. Okay. All right. Sure. Yeah. All right. I mean, to be fair, NASA's so cash-strapped for anything that's not exactly the SLS that using your analogy as a base, they're basically trying to build a whole car out of parts from a junkyard. It's possible, but yeah, I know what you mean. With the size of the SLS, would it make sense to just build a giant nozzle for the RL10s on the EUS? What benefits are a giant nozzle going to offer that wouldn't weigh it down? You're not going to get that much more efficient. Starship All-in-One is better than that. Yeah, T-Man, but even Starship needs to be refueled multiple times. SpaceX has admitted themselves that you need to launch Starship 15 times to even get anywhere near the moon. Now, there's an asterisk to that. If anybody else was saying, oh, I need to launch this 15 times to refuel it on orbit to get it near the moon, I'd be like, that's not sustainable either. SpaceX is the only one that's been able to back that up with Starbase. They're building a factory that's mass-producing vehicles. SpaceX is the only one that takes doing that seriously. Anybody else that's looking into refueling stuff, where's your factory that's going to mass-produce rockets so you can launch in a high frequency to refuel stuff so it doesn't take 6 months to go to the moon? See what I'm talking about? But it's SLS independent operations. That's a huge plus. What? I guess. Yeah, Starbase will be limited to 5 launches per year. Thomas, I'm starting to think that SpaceX has those Phobos and Deimos, that SpaceX bought those as an insurance policy, if you catch my drift. I still think a hypergolic-based SSTO lunar lander that could be refueled at Gateway with fuel brought from Orion for the Artemis missions would be a very sustainable architecture. Agreed, Vulcan, but a lunar SSTO is going to be a big thing, and you're going to need a big rocket with a big fairing to put it into space. I'll give you 3 guesses what I'm typing into Google Images right now. Come on. I'll give you 3 guesses. I'll give you three guesses. Altier, close enough. I'm pretty sure we can't do this because there's a stupid capsule up here. See what I'm talking about? See this? I love that SLS is ready to go, but what the frick is the plan here, man, you know? It's just like, okay. I agree with you, Vulcan. I think NASA should have its in-house stuff. And then commercial landers as well. I think CLIPS is the right way. I'm not going to say that Lunar Starship is a bad idea, though, either. That's just... a lot of that needs to go right. There's a lot of things that need to go right there to get Artemis 3 done on time. Or any lunar missions. That's a lot of different rocket launches to coordinate all together. Could the SLS with the EUS send an Orion and a lander? Nope. Nope. Not enough Delta V, Ryan. That's what I'm trying to tell you. The SLS, even with its EUS, with an Orion on top of it, can only carry part of a lander. It can only carry one piece, like the ascent or the descent module. My bet is that the vast majority of Starship orbital launches will be from offshore platforms. Starbase is just for the initial hops to those platforms. Agreed. A few tons of hypergolic fuel tank in a co-manifested with Orion to Gateway, just like the plans for future modules for the space station. Yeah, Vulcan, sure. You still haven't told me how we're going to get a big lander out there. Remember, we're coming from the Gateway. That's rectilinear halo orbit. We're not going... If it was from LLO, this would make way more sense. Like, Constellation. Limited by the Delta V in the EUS or the Orion SM? Both of those things. The EUS doesn't have enough to throw a lander and Orion on translunar injection. 45 metric tons translunar injection is the magic number. That's what Saturn V's upper stage can do. Simultaneously, Orion's service module, the ESM, does not have enough delta V to get down into low lunar orbit where making an SSTO lunar lander actually makes sense. See, it's so counterintuitive, dude. But I understand why they did it. They did it to make it so you have to make Gateway. That's why the engineering behind it is engineered to be sustainable over the over long periods of time, which has proven to be correct. It's just this long-term sustainability means that the jobs are sustainable for long periods of time, and that's why everybody says jobs program, right? But this long-term sustainability that was implemented into the design is making going to the moon like 1,000 times more difficult. The engineering is at odds with the law. Engineer, snide comment. You don't need an ascent stage until you want to come back. Nice. F1 news. Verstappen, Hamilton, Perez. Cool. All right. Anyway. So, is that from Q3, fellas? Why make the EUS if it can't even bring anything that useful to the moon? See, Ryan, now you're picking up what I'm saying. It's because the SLS was implemented in a way to be able to deliver the Orion and whatever payload it's carrying in the heavier version with the EUS. So EUS kind of payload bay, and then the Orion capsule at the top. That right there is designed to be able to deliver components to a rectilinear halo orbit around the moon, where a gateway is, right? That's what it's designed to do. SLS Block 1B, with the crew rating, is designed to build the gateway with Orion as a tug to be able to assemble it, right? And the idea is that if you do that, it should be easy to just put lander parts on it and then just have Orion put a lander together at Gateway and land it. That was the idea. But the problem with that is, you know, okay, so Ryan, the reason why they did that is because of cost. They said, you know, like, oh, if we don't need to build as big of a rocket, right? The rocket costs won't be as expensive. And we have sustainability. We have an anchor point around the moon. That one I like. That's a good idea. But the Saturn V could have done the same thing, and it could have done it more sustainably. Because the Saturn V can bring a lander all the way out there, or it could bring a space station module all the way out there into low lunar orbit. Because it was an integrated architecture from the start. It came with everything on it already. You know? Hey, Alleviate. What's up? Did you pull the trigger on that Mustang or what? That was a cool car, man. It's Q3. KSP and sea launch and then racing. Something like that. Ever read The Pilgrim Project? Option to land an astronaut on the moon in late 1967 to return via lunar module in 1969. No, that's kind of crazy, Ingenuber, but yeah. And that's what I mean. That feeds into a larger thing. You know, the whole, you know, I always say, with SLS, they said, let's build the rocket and we'll figure out the missions later because of cost. The reality of that situation is that's not less expensive. It's less expensive initially. Instead of footing the bill for the entire thing, Ryan, to get to the surface of the moon and then building off of that, that starts with funding up high, and then the funding goes down over time. Now we started with the funding here, and it gets more and 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 more, and your funding, the peak of your funding ends up being a lot more than that initial build that you footed. Right? This same logic can be applied to cars. If you find a car that's in crappy condition, right, but it's the car that you want, and you say, oh, I'll just fix everything on it, it's fine. you're going to end up going through a lot more headaches, and it's going to end up costing a lot more money than just spending a little bit more and buying the car with the engine that you want. Another example with cars that I suppose people would understand here, like, oh, I have a 96 F-250. I want a Tesla. Let me find Tesla parts and let me put it in my Ford. Is that going to end up being cheaper than a Tesla? You got to have a lot of technical know-how to do something like that. Is it going to end up being? Should I have just bought a Tesla to begin with to save some hassle? Yeah, probably. Probably would be easier. Pulled the trigger and got it for $40K, so $4K less than the listed price. Oh, you legend. Alleviate. I expect some video, man. I expect a video from you banging through the gears with a huge smile on your face. If I don't get that, I'm going to be a little upset. SLS 1B is almost the same size as the Saturn V, though. Yeah. Remember, Ryan, the EUS SAX TWR for Delta V, meaning that for stuff like getting to the moon, you're going to take a hit there, but for sending payloads further than the moon, right, your TWR eventually works in favor for you over time. You have to, long story short, you have to do a longer burn. It doesn't fit in with the phasing around Earth, because if you start your burn over here and you try to do the burn, you're going to be on the other side. So, like, what the EUS could do, for instance, is boost its orbit, go around, boost again, boost again, boost again, boost again. That would end up being more efficient, and that might get you your TLI, your translunar injection payload mass, similar to a Saturn V. The problem is that the life support systems on the capsules, Kamir and I were talking about this the other day, the life support systems on your capsules only last a certain amount of time here. They only last X amount of time before the people run out of oxygen. What are you going to do? Dock another ship to it? Resupply them? See? This stuff gets complicated real fast. At the end of the day, all-up integrated architecture, well implemented from the start, even though it costs more money, is always the way to go. Like, always. It never fails. It never fails. Every time we say, oh, let's do this and we'll build it in pieces and we'll do it as we go, never works. It's false. We made it up. Total fabrication. The shuttle survived 20 years with the mentality of build it, figure the use later. The shuttle was sustainable. Where did that sustainability get us, Swishio? It got us a pretty damn big space station. Now what? Also, the Van Allen belt. Yeah, you can go around it. It's not a big deal. But yeah, I understand what you're trying to say. Hey, ya boy. What's up? Okay, Q3 results here for Formula One. Max, Lewis, Sergio, Valtteri, Leclerc, Sainz, Ricciardo, Lando, Gasly, Tsunoda in the top 10. The shuttle got us a canceled Apollo program. Nice. Good, as long as Lewis doesn't win. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a hater by any means. But goddamn, I get it. You're a really freaking good driver with a really freaking good team to back you up. God damn, please somebody else for the love of God. He'll still probably find a way. Red Bull will find a way to blow it. They'll pull a Ferrari if you catch my drift. And Formula One fans, you know what I'm talking about? Am I right? Anyway, we had a big fat gap between Apollo and the shuttle too, just like this last one. Dear Lewis, please stop winning. Not gonna lie, I'm in the same boat with you. I really want Max to win the championship. Tiggs, he's a fantastic driver, and he's got a 5-star team backing him up. He's a great driver with a great frigging team. They deserve every win that they get, and I'm saying that as a Ferrari fan. It's infuriating watching it, but hey, don't hate the player, hate the game, dude. right? Like, he's a good driver with a good team. He's one of the best. God damn it, please let somebody else win. Holy crap. The fact that Mercedes has been able to keep this streak going is ridiculous. Like, it's a ridiculous achievement. And I'm not even, like I said, I'm a Ferrari fan. I freaking hate Mercedes, and I freaking can't stand Lewis Hamilton. But god dang, is he a good driver. And damn, is Mercedes a good team. Could they upgrade the ESM to get Apollo into low lunar orbit? Yeah, they could, Ryan. Sure. I'm really surprised that even in their incomplete state, we need to replace the shuttle designs didn't actually end up with the shuttle getting canceled. Yeah. EJ, I'm reading the data correctly. Apollo 8 had an Earth fixed velocity of 34,140 feet per second, and the shuttle was 25,000 feet per second on orbit. Yeah, Nikita, that sounds about right. Let me just do some math out. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, give or take. Keep in mind, the parking orbit that they put Apollo into, comparatively to the shuttle, was a lot higher. Yeah, you want to utilize that Saturn V TWR to push the AP out higher. TWR on your first and second stage is a very big deal. You will actually have a higher payload capacity if you have a higher TWR. Why is that? Well, you could have a first stage that has all the TWR in the world. If your second you could have a first stage that has the super high TWR, and if your second stage could have 100,000 meters a second delta V. But if your second stage could have more than enough delta V to get into orbit, but if it can't implement that delta V fast enough, it's just going to come right back down. This is why on super heavy launch vehicles, or anything for that matter, if you're trying to do something in low Earth orbit, high TWR makes a lot of sense. Higher thrust to weight ratio during landing and launching operations really makes a big deal. That'll actually save you delta V in the long run. Think about Falcon 9. When Falcon 9 comes back down to land, the closer there's a reason why they call it a suicide burn. The closer to the ground that Merlin 1D lights, all right, the more efficient the landing actually ends up being. Just like Falcon 9 on takeoff. Falcon 9 on takeoff with your first stage, yeah, your first stage can have 10,000 meters a second delta V. If it has 1.01 TWR, you're not going to go. It's very inefficient. You're going to spend too much time just sitting there trying to get the vehicle light enough to accelerate up, right? Believe it or not, between the Block 4 and Block 5 Falcon 9, they actually made the Merlins less efficient. They took away specific impulse and added thrust, and that ended up giving them more delta V in the long run, because the first stage gets away from the ground faster. Have you seen Scotland is planning to have the UK first spaceport? Yep. Hey, Spiffy, what's going on? Rocket Guy, what's going on? How are you? Do you think the Saturn V qualifies as a super heavy lift launcher? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Savvy. Last pulls. What's up? When are we going to get some KSP before the ESA launch? Drowning in work, but okay. Let me take a look. Ariane 5 is scheduled to launch at 9. We should probably switch over sometime soon. I only have a little bits and pieces of space news. Tell Spiffy how normal you are. No. You tell him. Overall, though, is the EUS a good third stage? Yeah, it's not bad, Ryan. I like it because I like it and I like SLS because not so much the EUS. They're working on it. I'm a huge SLS fan, and the reason why I'm an SLS fan is because it exists. All right? Because you know, here's a logic fallacy, Ryan, with spaceflight, okay? There's a logic fallacy here. The logic fallacy is that better is the enemy of good. SLS is good enough. It's good enough. We can figure out a way to get back down to the surface of the moon with it. It's just not going to be like Apollo, and it might take a little bit longer. It's good enough. All right? There are way better ways to do it. Constellation was off the bat, and Saturn V are better ways to make this happen. Okay? But both of those programs are canceled. Remember? That's why SLS exists as it does, because part of the reason is they looked at those two programs and said, okay, well, what caused these to get canceled? Well, the same people that came up with SLS kind of canceled Constellation, but that's another story. It's good enough. It's good enough. There's a moon rocket sitting inside of the VAB that has enough delta V to give us a foothold at least in the lunar gravity. That's fine. It's good enough. We'll figure it out from here. Like, it's not the best way to do things. That's what I'm trying to tell you guys. This isn't the best way to do things, but better is the enemy of good in this case. Because Ryan, you know, I keep saying that the EUS is trash, the ESM is garbage. Like, they're not good enough to really do, you know, like what we need them to do. But what I'm not suggesting is that we cancel that right now because we can do it better. Because every time someone says that, we end up pushing back our goals by at least a decade. Other side of this conversation, you know, I just said that they looked at Constellation and Saturn, you know, with SLS. SLS came out of Constellation because we thought we could do it for cheaper. And we didn't fly people into space for 10 years. From the U.S., right? The shuttle program came out, it was a response to the Apollo program being canceled because we thought we could do it better and for less expense. Oh, we could do it better with the space shuttle anyway. Okay. And I'm saying that as a shuttle guy. I love the space shuttle. Space shuttle's the best, man. Yep. There should always be a quantifiable metric for saying something is better than another. Yep, absolutely. But we saved $30 billion. Yep. What if they replace the core stage with a Big Chungus SRB to get some really good heavy lift out? Oh, wait, no, that's Omega. Just put RS-25s on Delta IV Heavy. Easy as cake. Now, that would be something, human. Look, SLS is not the ideal way to do things, but it exists. It's there. It works. Let's just... Fine. Screw it. I'm not picky. A moon rocket comes once in a blue moon. Or 50 years. You know? Hey, well, it's good enough. Screw it. We'll make it work. Throws tomatoes. Hey! Stop it. Hey, we got two now. Yep. I reminded we have McDonald's at home. McDonald's at home. Blue moons are more common than moon rockets. Yep. It's good enough. It's good enough for now. That's fine. Let's go. What's the other one? Starship. You know, it's good enough for now. That's the reason why I like it, because you know what? I'm not picky. This isn't the best way to do things, but when life gives you oranges, you make orange rockets. That's right, Apatoxin. Yep. Starship versus SLS, go. I don't know. Who cares? See, Ryan, Starship versus SLS, what do you want me? Rocket Guy just said a second ago, if you're going to compare stuff, you need a quantifiable metric. What metric are we using? Cost? A better metric for comparing SLS to Saturn V is the dollars per minute of boots on the surface of the moon. SLS is much better in that case with the current architecture and will be significantly better if we can get to 2 launches per year. Fair, Rocket Guy. Like I said, it's good enough. It's good enough. You know, I don't like it that we, you know, don't have an integrated architecture, an end-to-end architecture to get to the surface and back right out of the box, but whatever, dude. We'll make it work. And that's what I'm trying to explain to people. The reason why SLS doesn't have that is for long-term sustainability. Yeah, there you go, Savvy, right? Yeah. It's a good conversation, guys. I like this conversation. I like talking about this stuff. It's cool theory crafting about rockets like this. Starship has literally 0 parts in the final iteration. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I did hear some cool stuff about Raptor, though, but let's just say, look at what Elon tweeted about Raptor engines in the past day, and you could pretty much extrapolate what that information is. It's pretty awesome. Actually, it's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome. Do you think that SLS would have been better served with the F1S rocket motor from the Pyreos booster? 5 segments are just fine, Apatoxin. The 5-segment boosters are just fine. Pyreos boosters... Nah, I would if I was gonna make a shuttle-derived launch vehicle, it would still have the SRBs. I would go with 5-segment SRBs. The reason is because you have 30 years experience flying those things. You know they're safe. That safety track record is kind of painted in blood, but they're safe. They're fine. That's 3 O-ring SRBs, 3 O-ring segmented SRBs are just fine. Something like that, Swishio. Do you think that SLS would have been better served with the F1S rocket motor from Pyreos? Sorry, I meant on the core stage. No. F1s use Carolox. No. You'd want a high TWR Hydrolox engine, like the RS-68. RS-25 is good too. Other than the tooling being gone, which let me tell you, yeah, Savvy. That's what I tell people. We can remake the Saturn V. The question is cost. You know, we can remake it. There's no practical engineering thing that's not, you know, that says we can't remake one. We can remake one. It's just going to take some time because we basically have to figure out what the Apollo engineers were doing, right? And that's going to take a lot of testing and development, but you're going to do that testing and development anyway if you're rebuilding the damn thing, you know? So, F1B main engine with a J2X upper stage. Oh, you're a horrible person. That would be so righteous, dude. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine the mass savings, Savvy, that we could get with like a friction stir-welded Saturn second stage? A stir-welded second stage with a stir-welded S4B. Bro, we're easily looking at another 2,000 pounds of payload capacity. Easily. Ugh. Just remember, SLS is supposed to be developed for less than $9 billion due to reusing components from the space shuttle. Yeah, that didn't happen. Yep. We were talking about building Mars transfer stages in low Earth orbit. Would SLS be good for that? In an unmanned capacity, Ryan, yes. But then you need a way to get Orion up there. See the quality results? Yep. Yeah, I'm happy about that. A modern Saturn V would be insane. The mass savings from the material science alone would make it better than anything else. You get no argument from me, Savvy. Man, can you imagine? Savvy and Rocket Guy, I'm gonna rope you into this conversation. Do you think so? The Saturn V first stage, the S1C. Here, I'll bring you guys a picture of it. The S1C used an inner tank design, if I'm remembering right. So this bad boy, it used an inner tank, right? Inner tank, no common bulkhead between carolocks. The reason why they used an inner tank design is because of structure. Because a common bulkhead here wouldn't have been strong enough to hold up the entire Saturn V second, third stage lander, CSM, etc. You think you could CBH this thing nowadays? Common bulkhead, no inner tank with friction stir welding. Think that's I don't know, man. Maybe. Isn't friction stir welding patterned by a company, or am I being stupid? It's a type of welding that they use to get a uniform molecular structure around the tank wall Lego, to be able to. Basically, you can store propellants at higher pressures, and it's a lot lighter. 300 bar chamber pressure, human person. Starship basically does it. Yeah, that's true, but that's stainless. It's not aluminum, right? Man, you're right, Savvy. Now that I'm really looking at this thing, the mass savings that you could get from this is actually pretty insane. Yeah, look at the scale for the person right there. Yeah, cool. It's just so make it stainless. I don't have an answer to that one. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, right. You still need insulation in that bulkhead. Kerosene freezes into tar at 80. Yeah, I'm thinking of CBH though, Ingenuber. A common bulkhead, even with some insulation in it, would still be lighter than the inner tank, man. And taking away first stage dry mass will really increase your delta V. Taking away first stage dry mass will, that'll really, that increases TWR in this case, not necessarily delta V. And the Saturn V took off at like 1.1 thrust to weight ratio. The Saturn V gets out of the hole. If it gets out of the hole at like 1.2, 1.3 TWR, your payload capacity goes up exponentially. Would you rather keep SLS right now or restart and build this better Saturn V? Keep SLS right now. Yeah, I don't know. I guess stainless, Tessa. I guess stainless, right? Check out some videos on friction stir welding. It's mesmerizing to watch for sure. And use 5 RD-170s instead of F1 engines. That would be one powerful freaking rocket, man. If you redesign the Saturn V today, how would you do it? Propellants and material science. Stir welding the second and third stage alone, Swishio. You can make a carbon copy of that first stage. You can make a carbon copy of the damn thing, and it would still, if you friction stir welded the second and third stages, it would still, that would still be better. You'd increase payload capacity by pretty good margin there. What's the CATO? I forget. Alleviate. I'm sorry, man. was stainless. First stage is aluminum, Cynerd, yeah. I mean, yeah, the Saturn V, I'd probably still make it out of aluminum. Aluminum should be. I mean, if an SLS core stage can handle all that damn weight from the like all that upwards force being pushed on it and the downwards force of the payloads on top of it, yeah, stir welded aluminum like SLS should pretty much be fine. That's, yeah, I'm pretty sure you could get away with it. But then again, SLS doesn't have 7.5 million pounds of thrust pushing directly on the core stage. It's being applied laterally because the SRBs are on the side, right? SLS is aluminum lithium, though, right? Yeah, I think so, Cynerd, yeah. Communication and tracking officer. Thanks, Thomas. Or go whole hog and go for carbon composites. Tessa, I don't even think you need to get that crazy, to be honest with you. Remember, Saturn V is an expendable vehicle. Carbon composite doesn't really make sense in that capacity, right? It doesn't make sense doing stuff like that. Yeah, honestly, a stir-welded Saturn V would be... Guys, you'd save yourself... If you just stir-welded everything and used modern manufacturing to make that... I'm trying to think off the top of my head how much mass you'd save. You'd probably save like 2 to 3 tons of weld. That's how good friction stir welding is. It's wild. Can you, like... See, now I'm thinking, you know, if you have a stir-welded first stage on a Saturn V, right? Stir-welded first stage, aluminum lithium, kind of like Falcon 9, but a little bit bigger, right? Now you can run densified propellants. Densified locks with the first stage on Saturn V would be... What did I miss in space news? Not any real current events, Market Gardener. We're theory crafting about if we made a modern Saturn V, what things could we do to it to make it better? And I'm thinking if you made Saturn V's first stage, basically like how SpaceX makes Falcon 9, right? Stir welded aluminum lithium with densified Carolocks, dude. Oh man, with a stir welded S2 and a stir welded S4B. With a J2X power plant up top and then F1Bs down the bottom, Saturn V's throw weight would... Man, that would be insane. I think you could do 50 MT TLI. Easily. Feels like Saturn V was way ahead of its time. It was, Flash Wolf. It was a digital guidance computer. It has a digital guidance computer. A digital guidance computer 50 years ago. How many things were computer controlled 50 years ago? Oh yeah, it's way ahead of its time. Dude, the Saturn V pushed us into the modern age. It advanced digital computing and processing so ridiculously far that we went from guys building transistor radios in their garage in 1965 to guys building home computers in their garage in 1975. That's how far it pushed computing into the future. We advanced 50 years in computing because we sank that money into the digital guidance system because that's what was needed to land on the moon. Couldn't do it. I mean, you could do it by hand. Neil did it by hand, but the computers made it so much easier. Hey, Darkstar, what's going on? Wouldn't then the Saturn V have almost too much TWR if there's anything like that? Nah, Swishyo, the Saturn V barely got out of the hole. It was very slow off the pad. It just barely was good enough to work. All these innovations would give the Saturn V probably 1.2, 1.3 TWR because you're saving a ton of dry mass, right? Saturn V with 1.2, 1.3 TWR alone would increase your payload capacity to LEO and to the moon significantly. Doing good. What about you? I'm good. If Neil can do it, I can do it. And this is for getting the extra power motor minutes. Yeah. Rocket Guy raises an interesting point. If you want to build the Gateway, you don't really need a super heavy launch rocket. All you need is ion engines and a way to get whatever modules you want into Leo. And yeah, exactly. Synerd, yeah, that's a good point. That's what I mean when I say SLS is good enough. We can work with this. There's ways to do it. It's not like we built a rocket that doesn't have a viable pathway to the surface of the moon eventually. We built a rocket that was good enough, and we built it with the flexibility to be able to know, you know, we could do this, or we could do this, or we could do this, or we could do this. My criticism of that entire thing is that we sit there and we go, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this, and the rocket does nothing. See what I'm talking about? It's two sides of the same coin. What was the TWR of the Saturn V? Out of the whole PC Tech, 1.1. Just barely enough to go up. It's heavy. Heavy. I mean, watch the thing. It's just the thing fires and it's just like off the pad, and then it gets going. Yeah, 1.15 at lightest liftoff mass. There you go. I mean, Rocket Guy, what do you think? You think that bump, like if we were able to take some Saturn V off of the Saturn V with modern manufacturing techniques? I'll nerd out because I can nerd out to you. Decreasing the dry mass due to modern manufacturing, Rocket Guy. What do you think? What do you think we could get off the pad? I know that's a difficult question. I know it's not something you could say definitively. I guess a better way to say that would be like if the Saturn V had 1.2 or 1.3 TWR off the pad. What kind of payload numbers do you think we're talking about here? An extra 5 tons? 50-ton TLI? Something like that? That would be really useful. But you know, you're right in saying that that's a little too much. If you, like, somebody asked, Ryan, I think you asked, is that too much? Yeah, you don't need 50 tons to get to the surface of the moon. 45 metric tons translunar injection is fine. That's good enough. Your 50 tons is really good. You can make a bigger lander. Oh, sorry. Let's not do that. I would uprate to 165 metric tons to Leo, but that is just a feeling. Yeah. And Rocket Guy, I know that that's a conservative estimate. What could the Saturn V do out of the box? 120, 130, somewhere around there? 130 tons to Leo? I do like the design ideology of the Saturn V over SLS. Yeah. But, you know, Rocket Guy, if it was 2003 and you and I were on the board of the Vision for Space Exploration, we'd probably propose something like that, but they didn't. They proposed Ares 5, that got axed, and we got SLS. SLS is good enough. Right now, like, I agree with you. Right now, it would be stupid to try and say, no, let's not use SLS, let's go with Saturn V, like a refit Saturn V. That's dumb. 150 metric tons. 165. Yeah, that sounds about right. That'd be insane, dude. That would be a sight to see. But then again, it's not like SLS is going to be any less of a sight to see. That's still going to be pretty cool. Good discussion, though, guys. This is fun. I'm enjoying this. What will the SLS TWR be? Probably like 1.2, 1.3 off the pad. Something similar to the shuttle, Ryan. If the ideal data for the F1B extra thrust of the new engines would be equivalent to adding another F1 engine, 1.5 to 1.8, 300k per engine is 1.5 M. Yeah. Man, savvy dude, that would be one disgustingly good vehicle. Holy crap. Dude, it would be nuts. It would be nuts. And that's not even like, I didn't even, like, dude, I'm not even, like, thinking, like, you said move the S1C to stainless. Like, we don't even need to do that. I think you could get away with it with aluminum. Last pause. Yeah. How much smaller could the Saturn V have been, assuming we had modern technology and such back then? Not much. Not much smaller market. You might be able to shorten the first stage just a little bit because of, like, densified liquid oxygen and whatnot. But the second and the third stage on the Saturn V use hydrogen. How I like to describe storing liquid hydrogen is like this. Hydrogen, because it is so ridiculously small, right? It's very tiny boy, right? If you try to pressurize it, it would be like trying to store water in a sponge, right? What happens if you take that sponge and you try to put it into a smaller volume, right? You wring it out. All of it leaks out, right? That's what hydrogen basically does when you try to store it inside of a rocket fuel tank. So the idea is that hydrogen, well, very efficient, very, very light. You need a gigantic freaking fuel tank to store all of it. Look at how big SLS's hydrogen tank is as opposed to its liquid oxygen tank. So in terms of like size and volume, no, it would be about the same size. Maybe a little bit shorter. Could be a little bit longer. I don't know. Also, 5,000 parts to about 100 for the F1 to the F1B. Yep. It depends on how much payload it has, Ryan. Sorry for the dumb question. Thrust to weight, Ewok. Ewok, if your TWR is 1.0, that means the amount of upward acceleration force that you have is equivalent to the downward acceleration of gravity, right? 1.0 hovers. Just, we'll sit there and hover. 1.1 means you have 110% the upward force of the force of gravity, right? Meaning you're going to go up. If you have 0.9 TWR, that means your upward force is not enough to counteract the downward acceleration of gravity, and you don't go anywhere. You sit there. You find the ground really fast. Easy fix for too much TWR is just to put bigger fuel tanks on it. Tank stretching is one of the easiest pathways to giving your rocket more payload capacity. The Astra rocket, yeah, you get the Astra rocket, Ewok. Did you see the Astra rocket lift off the pad and then just kind of move to the side? That's 1.0 TWR. Astra did that, stretching. Yep. Tank stretching is a real easy way to, if you're able to make the mass optimizations on your rocket, it's a real easy way. Like, say you make a tank that's 5 feet long, right? And then you figure out, and that tank weighs 100 pounds, right? And then you figure out a way to make that same 5-foot tank 80 pounds. Now you can stretch it and make a bigger tank. You can make a 6-foot tank, right? That weighs 100 pounds, right? So you get a bigger fuel tank for the same weight. That's Rocket Guy, that's exactly what Astra did. And honestly, tank stretching is something that you taught me about. Yeah, stretching the rocket and stretching the tanks. Falcon 9 did it. Falcon 9 did that. Astra did that. A lot of people have done that. Electron? I don't know if Electron did. I don't think Electron has. But yeah, you could do tank stretching with the Saturn V. But honestly, lateral oscillations because the Saturn V is so ridiculously big is something. You ever launch a rocket in Kerbal and it starts doing this? On the way up, the thing starts going like this. It starts wobbling laterally. Yeah, you don't want to make it too tall. And the reason why you don't want to make it too tall is, well, the rocket is designed to be lightweight, right? And if it's lightweight, that means that they use aluminum. How many aluminum skyscrapers are there? I'm sure there's something somewhere, right? You're getting to the limits of material science of aluminum if you build too big of a vehicle. I would widen it. But see, widening a rocket is a lot harder than stretching the tanks. That's something with the Saturn V that you'd have to be cognizant of. Lateral oscillations on the way up were absolutely a thing. The Saturn V was doing this on the way up. It's very subtle, you can't tell. But the pogo oscillations, it was going like this and doing this. It was basically rattling its way all the way up into space. But you need the engine capability to make the extra fuel weight fly, right? I mean, Capcom, you'd have to account for the differential mass between carrying 100 gallons of fuel versus carrying 110 gallons of fuel. Yeah, sure, absolutely. Or you could just store, you have to compensate for the fuel. The fuel is the only variable in that particular case. And aerodynamics. Stretching the rocket is going to change the aerodynamics. Not much, but it's going to change it. Just a little bit. Saturn V was 300 feet tall. It's about as tall as SLS is, Solar. It's a big rocket. The problem with asking that steel is so dang cheap compared to aluminum. Yeah, I guess. Okay, so now we have more payload mass. How can we take advantage of that? Moon-based modules? Swishio, honestly, if we were going to do this remade Saturn V with 165 metric ton payload capacity, I'd honestly do Constellation with it. Yeah, basically Constellation. I wouldn't want to put people on there. I would take whatever... Say we put an Orion at the top of a modernized Saturn V. I would want something like Ares 1. So I would make something like a Saturn 1B, right? Take literally something... Not Ares 1, because the reason why Ares 1 exists is because it's shuttle derived. So I would use the same tooling that I would be using to make the third stage, the S4B, and I would use that to make an S1D. I would make a Saturn 1B rocket with a Kerolox first stage and a Hydrolox second stage. Basically Saturn 1B with a better first stage. Kind of like Eyes Turn Skyward. You guys know ETS? Here, hold on. Eyes Turn Skyward is an alternative history Apollo program, basically where the Apollo program could have gone had it kept going. And here, this is somebody that remade some of the rockets in KSP. But see this right here? This is, in Eyes Turn Skyward, this thing right here is a Saturn, not a Saturn 1B, but a Saturn 1C. The Saturn 1C has a single F1 engine in the first stage, right? And then a single J2 in the second stage, right? They use the same tooling from the S4B to make the first stage using Kerolox, right? Kerolox first, Hydrolox second, and then the Apollo CSM up at the top. That'd be, dude, this would be really good. That would be a good little rocket. That thing right there is, I mean, fellas, the Saturn 1B was not a bad rocket. You know, it always gets overshadowed by the Saturn V, right? You know, the Saturn 1B can move over 20 tons into Leo. Saturn 1B is like on par with Delta IV Heavy, Proton, Atlas 551, expendable Falcon 9, or reusable Falcon Heavy. It's on par with that. The Saturn 1B was a great launch vehicle. Last, also, are they reusing Apollo interstages for SLS? No. SLS is mostly clean sheet except for propulsion, Flacken. So for that argument that the tooling was lost for the Saturn V, both the F1 and the J2 were actively being updated to modern versions, F1B and J2, which takes much of the complicated parts out of the equation. Huge tanks are simple to make by comparison. Modern computers would make much of the guidance computer required complete overhaul anyway. What's left to be figured out? Man, so savvy, not much, dude. Really. Saturn 1B and Saturn V operating at the same time was awesome. Need to get to low Earth orbit? Use 1B. The moon? Use 5. Way better than what we have now. It's almost like we knew that, Thomas, and we implemented a program to try and replicate that to save costs. Just like Apollo did. But once again, better's the enemy of good at this point, so... Oh, Flykin... they look similar in the same way that most cars have 4 wheels, dude. There's only so many ways you can build a rocket interstage. Was 1B discontinued for any reason other than the magical upcoming shuttle program? No, that's it, Bill. No, dude, they had Saturn Vs. They had 3 Saturn Vs left over when Apollo was canceled. 3 Saturn Vs, and I'm not talking just like, oh, we have a couple of engines lying around. They had 3 fully assembled Saturn Vs. The stages weren't put together. They weren't integrated, right? But they had 3 of them left over. Apollo's budget dried up so ridiculously fast, and they shifted it so ridiculously quickly to the space shuttle that Apollo couldn't afford to fly hardware that it already made. Dude, they had 3 Saturn Vs, 2 Skylabs, and I forget how many Saturn 1Bs they had left over, but there was at least 3 or 4 of them. Why didn't they use them to save Skylab? Yeah, Flykin, that's what we're working with. We're gonna mess with that SSTO, see if we can drag it back over the pad and put it back together. Yeah, Capcom. Can you imagine how lightweight modern Saturn V avionics would be? Easily another 3 or 4 tons. Modern wiring, modern computers. I mean, frick, can you imagine how much we could take out of the CSM if we just, I mean, you could literally have a computer inside of the command service module the size of your smartphone and it would do the same thing. And that can, no. When I say clean up serious, I mean get the SSTO that landed in one piece and tow it back. That was the big SSTO, right? Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Solar, something like that, exactly. My argument stands though, SLS won the funding to do the Saturn V. Sidnerd, that's not what we're talking about. Savvy and I are theory crafting out what a modern Saturn V would look like. I'll be honest with you, that conversation is separate from the SLS better versus the enemy of good conversation that is also going on in chat. I'm holding like 3 or 4 conversations with different people right now. I'm good, 12. How are you? Yeah, it's all good, man. Don't worry about it. You would have to remake the MLP for the Saturn V. Yeah, that's the easy part, T-Man, to be honest with you. With the direction that NASA's going now, they would use commercial. They have been investing a lot into the commercial stuff. Yep. Cell phone-sized computer in the Saturn V instead of what it had, even in 2010. Talking about weight savings, that's pure payload mass, too. Yeah. Taking dry mass out of the first stage is going to increase your throw into LEO. Taking dry mass out of the CSM means you can put a bigger lander on there. Boring. I'm keeping track of the conversations pretty good today. The problem is my voice isn't keeping up. Not quite. You need like 4 or 5 independent computers to account for soft faults in space. Well, okay, what can you say we do that? Dude, 3 or 4 computers? 3 or 4 computers? I think 3 or 4 modern avionics packages would still be lighter than the single AGC. I'll be honest with you. I agree with you. I think you're right. I'm freaking excellent. The trip was amazing. I was in awe with what you saw. Pretty cool, 12. I hope you get to position. That'd be awesome. Hey, NASA man, what's going on? NASA man, the Ariane 5 launch is kind of screwing me today. I should be jumping into Kerbal at the top of the hour, dude. Can we show off the pictures another day? I'm sorry, man. It's just Ariane Space moving the Ariane launch to today really screwed me up. I'm sorry, what's Skylab? That was the thing they were going to park around the moon? No. Flykin, Skylab is what's called a dry workshop. They basically took a Saturn V 3rd stage, and they built a space station inside of it instead of putting rocket fuel, and then launched that into space. And then put a docking port on the top. It's a dry workshop, as opposed to a wet workshop. A wet workshop is a fuel tank that has a space station built inside of it, and then when the fuel drains out of it, you just have an empty space for a space station. Out of that modern guidance, you'd also get more accurate orbital insertion. Yep, absolutely. Quick, someone ask EJ why he loves the shuttle. Because it exists. Yeah, I passed out before the end of the game. Which one, Dev? Yeah, Skylab was big, man. Very big. Flykin at the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. on the National Mall, the Air and Space Museum, they have Skylab 2. Skylab 2 is there, which is was a spare for the Skylab program. After Skylab 1 went up into space, they gave it to the Smithsonian. You see how big that thing is. It's huge. 1/5 the size of the ISS in one shot. Yeah, I figured it'd be a good way to rest your voice a bit, but I'm around. What time is Ariane? Ariane's in 2 hours, dude. Yeah, you can walk inside it, Peg. Can you believe that? That whole big friggin' thing in space? That's unbelievable. When was this? Is this what the ISS is built off of? Nope. ISS was clean sheet architecture that stemmed from an entirely ground up space program that was space station program thought up during the shuttle program called Space Station Freedom. Yeah, that's where most of the USOS ISS modules are derived from. on the Russian side of the ISS Flykin, those Russian modules were derived from the Mir space station, which is derived from the Salyut program and the functional cargo block program. Oh, that's inconvenient. Here's a thought. If Arian ends before GTA, maybe be between the two. If not, we plan on Tuesday. I'm in. Sounds like a plan, dude. I'm trying to remember Russia's space station name. Mir. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. Now I want to go through and work on a modern Saturn V. That'd be cool. My Jebstone 5 rocket that I made in KSP Savvy kind of represented what a modernized Saturn V could be. I don't know if you ever saw that thing. Here, let me see if I can find the pictures. I made it in career mode for a little while. Let's see, is that it? No, there's the Jebstone 2. That obviously took some ideas from the Saturn program. Let's see. There's Jebstone 3. Jebstone 3 would be like if you took Titan 3 rockets and put them on the side of a Saturn 1B. Yeah, that was the idea there. That was a kick-butt rocket. Very, very capable. And then I made Jebstone 4. I made Jebstone 4. Don't ask. Jebstone 4 replaced all of the bottom stuff on Jebstone with a SRB. Jebstone 4 was a really good rocket as well. There's a Jebstone 2 AS. Yeah. Yeah. There's the 3. There's Jebstone 4. It's got a Clydesdale in the first stage. I even dialed this thing in to tail off and thrust to using a Cal controller on the throttle on the thrust limiter to make it throttle in real time. Not in real time, but throttle down for max Q. It was a great friggin' rocket. Yeah, I was gonna probably end up building something like this if we had chosen Constellation style stuff, but yeah, there's Mooncrane. Good times. Clydesdale, 2.5 meter SRB in KSP. Oh yeah, there's Jebstone. Insane payload capacity. Yeah, she's a beast. Hi, Pick. What's up, man? And then 5. Jebstone 5 is around here somewhere. Yeah, see, then I modified it to carry Pollux boosters on the side. Oh, man, this thing was a tank, dude. It's crazy. And the first stage parachuted down and landed. Yeah, see? And then I made cranes on Minmus to be able to stack stuff on top of landers. Yeah. There's Jebstone 5. Jebstone 5 is basically modernized Saturn V. So I made an SLS style engine section for it. Common bulkhead on the first stage. It's just one fuel tank. And used fairing interstages representing carbon composite interstages like on a Falcon 9. This thing was a monster, Savvy. It was beast. So sorry. I'm trying to grasp my head around this, trying to catch up. SLS is basically a Saturn V remake. No, you're trying to follow 3 or 4 different conversations at once. No, Savvy and I are talking about what it would take to make a modern Saturn V and what we would do to it if we wanted to make a modernized Saturn V. There's another conversation floating around in chat, Flykin, about the benefits of SLS versus Ares 5. And then there's another conversation going on in chat about why SLS is good enough. And that's like 3 different conversations that was going on. I think just an idea, but I think we should vote on a budget for kick stages for Jebstar, just like Shuttle Centaur. Yep. As part of that better versus good conversation, remember that the EUS has a cargo variant with 43-ton TLI and an 8.4 meter fairing. SLS just isn't all about Orion. Straight up. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Novus, look, would it be nice to make a... Yeah, I mean, that's the basic gist of all these different conversations. Would it be better to make a a modernized Saturn V right now? Yeah, oh, absolutely. It'd be better. Would it be better to bring back Ares 5? Oh, God, that would make me so happy. Better's the enemy of good. SLS exists. All those other things, they're just pipe dreams right now. SLS exists. And the EUS with SLS, that's good enough. That's good. We can go back to the moon with that. That's fine. It's not the best, but it's good enough. That's fine. So what was the new news about from Elon about Raptor? Scrote, they're pushing for 300 bar chamber pressure. Yeah, 300 bar chamber pressure with Raptor 2. Yeah, SpaceX is doing some insane stuff with their testing. 300 bar from a rocket engine is absurd. So what does 300 bar mean, Scrote, in case you don't know? 1 bar is 1 atmosphere. So the pressure that you're feeling right now is 1 bar. It's about 14 psi, 14.7 psi if you want to be very, very technical. 101 kilopascals if that's the unit of measurement that you use. The pressure that's generated inside of SpaceX's Block 2 Raptor is 300 times that. So let's take 14.7 pounds per square inch times that by 300. That's 4,410 pounds per square inch. So if you had an inch of surface area, right? If you had an inch of surface area and you put a lead block on top of that inch, right? So say you had a cube of titanium that's 1 cubic inch, right? And you put that down. And you put a lead block that's 4,400 pounds on top of it. The amount of force pushing down on that titanium block is equivalent to the pressure inside, the chamber pressure, the force inside that's being exerted on the side of the combustion chamber. 300 bar. 4,400 pounds per square inch. That's absurd. For a little bit of reference, the differential pressure between inside and outside the ISS is about 14 psi. It's about 1 bar to 0, right? A submarine at 100 meter depth is not even that much of a differential pressure. It's ridiculous. I saw a few Raptors being built out in Hawthorne. They were definitely larger than the Merlin 1D and a lot more complicated, although it seemed smaller than an MVAC. I could totally see that being legit. Yep. Hey, WD-40, thanks for the raid, man. And if that's combustion chamber pressure, then the pressure on the outlet of the turbo pumps has to be higher, right? I don't know, Sinern. That's a question for Rocket Guy. I'm not smart enough to be able to answer that. What's going on, WD-40 Raiders? How are you? 300 bar was always the goal. They built it with the scalability for 300 bar. For the Block 2 Raptors, Rocket Guy. Yeah, pretty much. The ISS differential is equivalent to a sub 32 feet underwater. Yep. It's 43, Ryan. I misspoke. I apologize. Okay, he acknowledged us. Sorry, I was on a roll. Alvin. I was on a roll, dude. You get me talking about space, I won't shut the hell up. What's up, WD-40 Raiders? What was WD up to? But there's going to be some pressure drop across the ejectors, right? Well, there has to be to atomize fuel, so yeah, I would assume. What about a car's engine? A car's engine chamber pressure? 120 psi. So 6-7 bar, something like that. Yeah. They already hit 330 bar with Raptor 1, so it was able to, just not known for how long. But EJ not shutting up about space? No, that never happens. He was doing a wildlife stream and we saw an osprey and a great horned owl. Now, Alvin, when you say osprey, are you talking about the bird or the airplane? knowing WD, we're probably talking about the bird. In which case, that's still really cool. And some frogs. Nice. If there was less back pressure, you would get chugging, as the combustion chamber would keep fuel from flowing in. Gotcha. It's like when the fuel pump's on Tough Enough, Rocket Guy, or when the fuel pump on Tough Enough ingested some water, my engine didn't work correctly. Remember that? That was fun, right? Repost. What will SLS do? Like, what is its goal? Going back to the moon sustainably. It could, Ryan, it could get up to 45, I'm pretty sure. If it gets to 45, man, we're good. Knowing you, I knew you would think it was a plane. The bird, not the airplane. Yeah, Alvin, that's why I asked, dude. I'll be honest with you. That's why I asked. Almost as fun as the wheel going down the road ahead of you. Yeah, my truck was just staging, man. I was just trying to shed mass, okay? Don't think of it as parts falling off. Think of it like having engine out capability, all right? You have 4 tires, so you can use the other 3 in case one falls off, obviously. Don't be stupid. Dr. WD was awesome. That's cool. You guys, Dr. WD40 for the people that are on my end, he's a wildlife IRL streamer. He goes on like nature walks. It's actually really cool. It's, yeah, awesome IRL streaming. So the same idea what Apollo instead of going touchy leaving, yeah, exactly. Their SLS has open architecture Flykin to be able to make it a lot more sustainable. Like SLS is explicitly designed to be able to build space stations around the moon, like what's called the Lunar Gateway. You're probably gonna want to go read about that. I'm just a biologist. So, right, your truck doesn't have wheel out capability. Got it. Yeah, most cars don't. Just putting it out there. Actually, Rocket Guy, we were thinking about what type of fuel tanks to be able to put into the what type of fuel tanks to be able to put into the truck, because that truck has the capability of carrying 2 fuel tanks in it. It did from the factory, but Hoonigan removed one. We were thinking about like what kind of fuel tanks I would need to be able to go from like Boston to Orlando, just for some random reason, on one tank of gas. Like how much fuel would we need with that truck, with that motor, moving X amount of payload, like payload, nice. Like how big of a fuel tank would we need? We were talking about like what types of fuel tanks we should put in there. It was actually pretty cool. It was like, I mean, it's like, you don't. If we could make it down there in one shot, right? It's similar to like sending a rocket to the moon. You need to carry enough fuel to get all the way to the dang moon because there ain't no gas stations in space yet. Right? Last, please. I'm gonna post the link in 4 seconds if that's okay. You're posting a link in a second for vote if that's okay. Okay. Conversations are getting saturated, dudes. Hold on. Hey, WD, what's going on? Sorry, late to the raid. We're packing things up. Don't worry about it, man. Mark Gardner, you were talking, if I'm remembering right, you were talking about wanting to do a better upper stage for Jebstone. The transfer stages that I was using with the Freedom rocket, I'm going to, dude, it'll have us.
Listen, Tranquility Base here. Nice. The Eagle has landed.
The big SSDO, I'm going to give upper stage that can dock and undock inside of it. So I could, we could send stuff out to the moon, then bring it back and take it back down in the SSTO. Yeah. Payload down mass capability is a big deal for low Earth orbit vehicles. Kaiser, if we're talking wheel, I literally just got back from Discount Tire and put these on. Hey, nice tire, dude. Nice wheels and tires. Those are Krager's, right? Hey, those are cool, man. Let's see what we got. Chat, take a look at this. That's the wrong screen. That's still the wrong screen. Hey. Or send stuff to other planets or ground stations. Yep. You might have to go on a diet and lose some payload if your tanks are too small. Nice. Yeah, those look good, man. Those look good. That's a nice truck. It's a nice truck. For real. Thanks for the 5, man. I appreciate it. I don't know why you're giving me money. You just spent a ton of money on wheels and tires. This is where I got 45 from. I believe you, Ryan. But that's for future Artemis missions. It says it right in the title. The U.S. they can uprate it over time. I'm glad to have the old turbine-style wheels off there. Yep. Man. Come on, throat. Come on, voice. Let's go. Keep going. Or send stuff to other planets. Yeah. Is it common on trucks to have 2 fuel tanks? No, LM. That was Ford's selling point for the longest time. Ford trucks came with dual fuel tanks from like 1980 to like 1996. Yeah. That, the idea is that, you could fill up both fuel tanks. And it's cool, man. In the truck, there's a fuel crossfeed option. Yeah. It has, basically what I'm trying to tell you is that the Ford truck is asparagus staged. It has a crossfeed option, except you don't jettison the tank because fuel tanks on cars make up a very small dry mass comparatively to the rest of the vehicle. Speaking of cars, this car's $1 million. It feels like a cloud. Let me see. Oh man, that's a Maybach, dude. That's ridiculous, Sawyer. So the contract trials, when a bunch of companies showed off their designs and competed for a contract, that was for HLS, right? For human landing system, yes, potentially. It's a part of architecture. It's part of the architecture to get us back to the moon. But yeah, Ford trucks had dual fuels. They had 2 18-gallon tanks, so hang on. Let me liters that out for you. They had 2 70-liter tanks, basically. Yeah. I mean, you could go 500 miles with the dual fuel tanks, no problem. Did you watch the new JPL documentary about Cassini? I haven't seen it, Wicked, but everybody that's told me about it, says it's amazing, so I'm probably going to have to watch it. Oh, geez, don't twist my arm, man, right? The only problem with that interior switch is when one of your kids flips it when grandpa's not looking. Yeah, exactly. That's cool. It helps for redundancy, too. It is really neat, yeah. Yeah. Remember what I always say about those trucks, LM. They're designed for a guy that works out in the middle of the U.S. with nothing around. There's nothing around. There might not be a gas station for 100 Ks in every direction, dude. So those dual fuel tanks help in that regard, yeah. I got 820 miles with your 36-gallon tank. Did you replace the rear tank with the 36er, Bright? What did you do for the sending unit, if you don't mind me asking? How big were each of the fuel tanks? Kaiser, the fuel tanks that came on my truck from the factory are either 2 18-gallon tanks or a 15er and an 18er. I got 820 miles. Oh, it's a 2015. 820 miles. That's still pretty dang good. What engine is in yours, Bright? .35. Wow. And Bright, refresh my 3.5 twin turbo. Do you have what year is it, Bright? If you don't, refresh my memory, dude. I'm sorry. I always ask every viewer what kind of car they have, and it's hard to keep track of everything. You could use some welding rod to extend it. I watched the entire video of yours, Sawyer. What I'm wondering and what I'm asking around for is if there's any off-the-shelf components there that we can make work and not have to modify a sending unit. Yeah, John, we should do it. It's a 2015 F-150, 365 Ford's phone with 3.5. Wow, that's impressive, dude. That's pretty cool. 800 miles, man. That's pretty awesome. my truck, my F-250 gets... It has a range of... With one tank, because it doesn't have the second tank in it, it has a range of... It's about 250 miles. It gets 15 miles to the gallon. It's not very good. Why does the positive crankcase ventilation go into the intake? Because spewing blow-by out, Flykin, it's better for the environment on positive crankcase ventilation if you take the mixture that comes out. So if your crankcase has positive pressure, that means it's blowing air out of your engine's valve covers, right? And if that's happening, that means your piston rings are failing because you're getting what's called blow-by. Basically, when the explosion happens inside of the piston, the explosion blows by the piston because the seal rings don't work. It happens on older cars, or it happens if the cylinder walls in a car are warped. So that's usually an unburnt gas oil mixture, right? And just spewing that out into the environment is not a good idea. So what automotive manufacturers came up with is when you get positive crankcase, when you get blow-by and your crankcase pressure goes up, right? They put it into the engine, and the engine burns off all the unburnt fuel eventually over time. That's why PCV goes into the intake. Crankcase gas, oil, and mist just used to go out a tube onto the ground until the early 60s. Yeah, exactly, Bill. They figured that, probably be better if you took that stuff and burned it off. Yeah. You mean blow pass, lulz. Sure. Yeah, Fishy, we could do some cool stuff. Like, how cool would it be to be able to cross-feed between tanks on the truck? Like, I want to wire up something trick for that thing. Yeah, Flykin, yeah, okay, I remember now. There's always some blow-by, even on brand new engines, because of the gap in the piston rings needed for thermal expansion, not just on old engines. Yeah, that's a good point. Gosh dang thermodynamics. Thermodynamics is such a pain in the butt, dude. That's like the worst. Out of all the stupid physics laws, thermodynamics is probably the worst. Thermodynamics with engineering, guys, is like playing the game. You don't win. Every time it's mentioned, you lose. And every time you have to do something with it, you lose. That's thermodynamics, and that's how that works. It's a real big pain in the butt. I hate how right that is. It's such a pain in the butt, man. Damn you, work, and trying to make things work. That's so annoying. Thanks for that, EJ. I can't remember the last time I lost it. Yeah, you're welcome. As a student, can confirm thermo sucks. It's such a pain in the butt, dude. Like, Shaw, I'll be honest, I haven't even gotten into the math. I just looked at, I know the laws, right? And I'm looking at it and I'm like, Also, it has to be below the belt sign or it don't count. Thermal and chem sucks. Hell Hydra, I guess that's, yeah, that's right. Yeah, thermal chemist. That just sounds complicated, man. Tiggs, airport prototype. Quick thoughts. Approved. Do it. Yeah, that looks fine. How about aerothermal chemistry? So, aerothermal chemistry? So, hypersonics. Yeah. The only fun thing about thermo is that there's a zeroth law of it. Yeah, right. Thermodynamics is like going to the casino and playing like blackjack. The odds are just stacked against you. It's just, yeah. Anything is possible until thermo gets involved, yeah. Damn you, thermo. The second law, yeah. Very annoying. Alright, guys. Here. There's a quick couple more bits of space news here. The first two bits that I had here is that the investigations on the ground equipment being completed and the anomaly haven't been identified and corrected. Ariane VA-255 is go for flight. That's a little bit later tonight. That's in about an hour and a half. And then here's preparations, and here's a picture of the Ariane 5 on the pad. This is launching 2 geostationary communication satellites. It's launching out of the Guyana Space Center in Kourou. And we're going to watch that sucker go, man. That's going to be pretty fun. Pretty fun little mission. Hopefully the cast is less cringe than it was last time. The other little bit here is Dmitry Rogozin saying... Wait, what did he just say? I gotta translate this. Hold on. On November 24th, this interesting structure will leave Baikonur to the ISS. Do you know what it is? So this right here is the Uzlovoy module, the utility module or the nodal module, and it's called Prichal, and it's going up to the space station. It's going to dock to the bottom of Nauka. It's basically just a 6-axis node like the one in KSP. The cool thing is that it's being delivered by a Progress spacecraft, but it's a Progress spacecraft with no cargo compartment and no orbital module. It's just the service module from a Progress with an adapter to adapt to this thing. And then this whole thing docks to the station like a spacecraft, like a Soyuz would. It's the same thing, only instead of the cargo and orbital module, you have the 6-axis node, which is actually really neat. Will this one spin the ISS? No, there's no thrusters on it, so you don't need to worry about that. Yeah. Yo, a Progress with no brim. It's crazy. The way it was explained is, you can't win, you can't break even, you can't quit. Yep. Yep. Shall we play a game? Let's play a game. Oh no, what game are we gonna play? Let's play a game called Thermodynamics. No! You know? Yeah, that's cool. This is gonna go up in November. Another module will be added to the ISS. This is going on the bottom of the Nauka, or science module, that was added to the space station this summer, which is pretty cool. And then this is coming from Delft. Delft Aerospace Rocket Engineering is a university rocket team, and they have a launch vehicle, Stratos 4. They decided not to launch, though, and today was the last window where they were launching from, and they basically had GSE problems. They scrubbed the entire thing, and now they all have to go back to university. That sucks. What is Roscosmos going to use those 5 free nodes for? You could use them for a bunch of different things, Swishy. You could use them to dock spacecraft. You could use them to dock other modules. The Russian modules that the Russians use two types of docking ports on their modules. They use the androgynous peripheral attachment system, and they also use the SSVP. The SSVP is an active passive system, meaning it's non-androgynous, meaning you have male and female ports. But long story short, the space station modules use similar ports as the spacecraft, so you can dock whatever to whatever. It's basically one standardized docking port. Most of the modules are using SSVPs, Soyuz docking ports. Hey Zach, the more I learn about rocketry, the more I adore you. K-bye. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you like it. It's pretty cool, right? It's pretty interesting stuff. Even sitting here theory crafting about Saturn V's is still fun. Anyway, that's all the space news, guys. That's why I wanted to fill space news up with a little bit of theory crafting about rockets today. But anyway, let's go over into KSP. We're only going to play short KSP today because we got to do some ground testing with the big SSTO. Now, if you miss